have you ever dealt with this scenario? I was thinking about this morning, where a lot of people, I would say the majority of people, I want to assume, work for money because money gives them freedom to do what they want to do, freedom to eventually step away from having to work their 9 to 5 or whatever it is that they do. I always think of money equating to freedom, right? But then you work, I was thinking about this morning. People work for so long and you lose so much freedom when you work hard. Like this fall, I've been like kicking it into overdrive with I got a lot of different stuff going on. And I'm like, man, I'm grinding my ass off. But then I almost feel like the other part of me is like, man, have I been having enough fun? Like trying to check in with myself. Like, because I don't want to lose that feeling of what it feels like to be free. Because then do you find that people pop out the other side and they have all the money in the world, but then they don't know how to get back to what their original goal was?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's sad that it is a bit of a generational thing. Your generation has been sold it seems to me a bag of goods, but not a good bag. It's a bag of shit, is what it is. People think that discipline is the opposite of freedom. Right, that if you think of the word discipline, it means stodgy, it means routine, it means you're the kid not going to the party because you're studying or practicing something. Let me tell you, if you look at the etymology of the word discipline, at the core,
discipline's even like your parents kicking your ass.
That's right.
Parent discipline.
So the etymology, the origin of the word discipline is disciple. Right, disciple. Well, what's a disciple? And people know enough about Christianity to know Jesus had disciples. Well, who were his disciples? What did they do? They were his what?
Judas.
Judas was
a bad guy.
Judas was the betrayer.
He needed a performance coach.
That's right. Judas.
You could have worked with Judas. Dude, none of this would have happened.
Dude,
you could have saved us.
Call my people. Sign Judas up. Get Judas in the office.
No, the disciples. They followed Jesus. They're followers.
They were his students. That's right. Right. And so a disciple is a student. So self-discipline means to be a student of yourself, right? And so what actually happens in the path to bliss, a blissful life, discipline are not the chains that you wear. Discipline is what creates the path to freedom. Because once you master yourself, freedom is what's on the other side. People think of freedom as irresponsibility and recklessness and chaos. That's not true. At that point, you're impulsive. You are actually at that point a prisoner and a slave to your desires and your impulses and whims. You're a hedonist. And hedonism is not a joyful experience, despite, listen, if you're at a club in Vegas or people, I'm not saying it's not fulfilling to every once in a while unleash and let it out and go ballistic, whether it's in Ibiza, even on a golf course. Just let the big dog eat, pull that driver out and let it go. In every domain, you don't ever want to live your life fully suppressed. But once you understand your own desires and your own weaknesses, and Freud had a model for this, the id, the ego, and the superego, and you master yourself, that's where real freedom is on the other side. But that only comes, like if you want to be, think of a pianist. You have to master the keyboard before you can play freely. As a golfer, before you can have psychological freedom, you have to master the golf swing. So discipline leads to freedom. I know people don't want to hear that. I know it's not popular. I sound like grandpa, but I'm living the room with the best of the best, and they all say the same thing. You got to have rigor, right? You got to have some discipline to be great.
How do you describe freedom in living, not necessarily just on the golf course where you can swing? If you have, a correct swing, then you can have more options. But in life in general, what is freedom?
That's a big and beautiful question. So I don't have the answer. I've read a lot about it. Right, when you think like Henry David Thoreau, who left society, and he to go live by a lake in Walden. I think it was Massachusetts or New Hampshire, wherever the hell it was. I think it was Massachusetts. And he said, listen, he wrote, "A man is born free," I mean mankind, women too. People are born free, but everywhere they are in chains. And he was talking about the chains, the imprisonment in the mind. And so we're born free, but as you go through life, we develop, we put ourselves in this prison of other people's expectations and various things. Now, when you think about it, a lot of the major schools of thought have tried to wrestle with this. So we'll look at Christianity, we'll look at Buddhism, and look at hedonism, right? So we all are born with natural desire. People want, we're born, we want food, we want warmth, we want comfort. As we get older, we want sex, we want esteem, we want money. So the number one psychological thing that everyone who cares about excellence has to understand, the one concept is that of desire. We're born wanting, as I said, and it goes throughout the life cycle. We want, I want that food, but then I've already had, I want the next thing. The grass is always greener. I have this beautiful wife. Now I want this other woman, or this great guy. I want this other guy. I've got money. Now I want fame. I've got fame. Now I want power. So this concept of human beings being perpetually wanting, we're insatiable. Well, that's true. And that's fine. But the problem is it's a setup in life. And all the major schools of thought have tried to deal with this setup. So what the Buddhists say, and the Hindus, is that all suffering comes from this desire, this want, that the moment I want something I can't have, I'm in a state of suffering. So their answer is to want nothing. That true psychological freedom and happiness comes from not wanting. That if you can detach from materialism, then you are psychologically free. Okay, that's one way to do it, but it doesn't mean you're happy, you're not fulfilled, because you haven't achieved anything. Catholic tradition says desire is a bad thing, so you punish it with guilt, right? The only way to handle this insatiable desire is to punish it. Okay, well, that leads to all sorts of mental problems, right? Look at a lot of kids who have been suppressed in their teenage years. They get to college and they become a shit show because they finally have the opportunity to go scratch those itches. And
Right.
I've known college kids who were raised in Catholic schools, and I'm not bashing Catholicism. It's fine. They're all fine. But the danger, the flip side of it is, get to college and, by the time she was at the end of her freshman year, she goes home, with an STD, pregnant, and a coke habit, right? Like, it's a real thing. It happens. So Catholicism isn't, that suppressive nature isn't always the answer. Buddhism and Hinduism and detachment isn't always the answer. So people say, okay, well, I'm going to be a hedonist. But I'm going to scratch at it. If I want it, I'm just going to do it. Okay. And there's a path to self-destruction. So there's no perfect setup. If all the major traditions have tried to solve for it, the answer is you have to figure out what works for you. I will say that you have to be free in life. That if you want to be great at something, it's only going to come through freedom. But then you have to find what playbook works for you. Is it more in the sort of Catholic suppressive tradition? Is it the Hindu detachment tradition? Is it the healing? Or is it a combination of both? There's this great book that was turned into a movie called Into the Wild, about a kid. His name is escaping me, but he graduated Emory University, graduated with honors, had a super high IQ, had $27,000 saved to go to law school, and graduated Emory University, took the pile of money, started it on fire, went off the grid, gave his car away, and went and got out of civilization and society and tried to find his own truth. And it's a beautiful story in the tradition of people who decide freedom is more important than living. I will not live a prisoner. And if I can't, and it's worth risking my life to do so. And unfortunately, it ends that he dies. But if you read his own words, he dies happy. Yeah, it's a little bit cheesy, but it goes back to that line in that movie Gladiator. Every man dies, but not every man truly lives. And so at a fundamental level, you want to go for something in life, you have to ask the question, what are you willing to give up for the thing you love, right?
So what do you teach people when they come in? You're just going for performance. That's the goal. And someone comes in with basically, what do? I have a desire, which is going to either be self-destructive, is going to be, in some shape or another. If I pursue it, it's going to be self-destructive. If I tell myself not to do it, it's going to be bad. What do you?
Well, the nice thing about golf is what we call expository. It exposes you, so you don't need to be, if you want to be Kobe, if you want to be Conor McGregor, if you want to be Steve Cohen, you have to be willing to go for it at a level that most people aren't. Now, most of us, just to your point, want performance. They want to make a couple $1,000,000 a year. If you're on Wall Street, or if you're a doctor, you want to get a good job at a good hospital. If you want to be a good golf, you want to get to scratch. that's all gettable. Because what happens is golf exposes what your weaknesses are, and we can work on all of them, right? If you're overconfident in golf, it gets exposed. If you're underconfident, it gets exposed. If you're risk averse, it gets exposed. If you are sloppy in your habits, it gets exposed. So whatever golf is just a mirror in that regard. It's going to tell us what your weakness is, and whatever it is, we can make it better. And by virtue of that, we can make you better, right? So if it's just about performance and that's the goal, it's all gettable.
And you said earlier that if you want to really have the highest performance, you have to be free.
You have to be free.
Do you
can't play scared? No one's ever done anything great playing scared.
And that's what I was going to ask is, do you feel like your high profile clients, not necessarily name by name, but just the people who are performing at a high level, that they've all found freedom through discipline?
100, literally 100%. Like talent will get you, a seat at the table. There's this old poker saying, if you don't know who the sucker at the table is, it's you, right? Right. Like if you're looking around the room and you know who the sucker is, you're the sucker. In a room full of sharks, in a room full of smart people,
right.
Like you're the sucker. So what was the question again?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, and it's kind of a nerdy sounding question. I kind of feel bad about even coming out of my mouth, but do these people that are the highest level people, the Kobe's, the Steve Cohen's, the names you've mentioned, what are they like to be around? That freedom, that's what I'm trying to. I've just never been around anyone at that level. You're talking about the bell curve. These people are way 1,000 miles outliers on one side.
Right.
And I'm just trying to get a feel for you, or someone who's been around a lot of those type of people. What is it like to be around that level of excellence, that level of freedom? Because, and this is why I'm asking, because I could also see it being almost like a bad thing. Like I was talking about David Goggins. Are you familiar with him?
I know the name. Who's he?
He's a guy that I came into through listening to Joe Rogan's podcast, but he's a military guy, ex-Navy SEAL.
Yep, got it. Yep.
And his whole life is built on just getting through the pain, suffering, 27 miles a day.
Yeah.
And while it's inspirational, and I have the utmost respect for him, I mean, I've read his book, everything, awesome guy. I don't know if I would want that for myself. Like, to have that level of discipline, that doesn't seem, on some level, he doesn't seem like he's living a free life. That doesn't seem like freedom to me.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense. The question is he doing it because he's choosing to, or does he have to do it? Is he running away from something?
That's what I'm asking. So these top guys, are they running away from something, or do you feel like they're self-realized and they're living their best life that they could be living?
Yeah, in my experience, and I'm not saying this to be politically correct, they're great. I'll give an example here. When you look at old paintings from history of like Jesus or any religious figure, Mary, Buddha, you ever wonder why they put a halo around these people? What the hell is a halo? If you think back to the 1400s before they had photography, if I was trying to capture the essence of somebody who gave off such great energy, and I'm a painter, I'm going to have to paint them and I have to put light around them because they glow. Right? When people were really in tune with energy before modern technology and before electronics and digital and this and that, like you probably studied people a lot more closely because you had to. And the reality is there are people who are just really, really special. There was a period of time, when I was around Tiger Woods quite a bit, and I don't get intimidated by fame. I don't get intimidated by wealth. I don't care who you are. My rule of thumb is like, you have a house, it's 4 walls and a roof. I don't care if it's $60 million or $600,000, it's 4 walls and a roof. I don't care about the veneers of life. I don't care about materialism. I care about you as a person. But when you're around some people, their presence is just, you just know special when you see it because they glow with such light and energy and excellence. And in my experience, being around a Sean McDermott, a Steve Cohen, a Philip Sovin, being around Tiger Woods, Justin Rose, guys like Matt Kuchar, Jack Nicklaus, who I've had the privilege to spend a lot of time with, like there is that essence and that light and that special thing that comes out of them, and by extension of that, they tend to be really lovely to be around. It's not like it's portrayed in these movies where they're nefarious, mean-spirited, heart of darkness, hyper-aggressive jerks, life tends to weed those people out along the way. And if it doesn't, and they get to the top, like, they get exposed eventually, right? You can't hide forever. And if they do hide in their lifetime, history exposes them. So one way or the other, when you're going through this life, you're going to get exposed. And being around the best of the best, BOTB, my experience is that they're just wonderful to be around. Because they've solved most of the problems of the human existence that have allowed them to be so successful. That they are free. They have found a way to deal with fear. They do have rigor. They have great senses of humor, right? One of the things, if you watch Tiger Woods closely, watch how often he's either needling somebody or getting needled and teasing and laughing. Spend time around Steve Cohen, wonderful sense of humor, laughing all the time. Tom Brady's known to have a great sense of humor. So humor and lightness and happiness, because they're doing what they love to do. So they're happy. The work makes them happy, right? So my experience in being around great people who are great at their craft and their vocation is that they tend to be really, really lovely to be around.